In the dimly lit laboratory of KAIST, silence hung heavy in the air as Dr. Park Hye-yun stared at her computer screen. The soft hum of machines filled the room while outside, the city lights of Daejeon twinkled against the night sky. Her eyes never left the stream of data flowing across her holographic display, numbers and patterns that seemed to break every rule of physics she had ever learned. The quantum oscillation chamber, a device she and her team had built over 3 years, sat in the center of the room. Its metallic surface gleamed under the laboratory lights, housing technology that had just shown something impossible. The quantum particles they were studying weren't behaving according to any known scientific principles. Hye-yun rubbed her tired eyes beneath her glasses, checking the time. 2:43 a.m. She had been here for 20 hours straight, running and rerunning the tests. Each time, the results were the same. The entangled particles were somehow existing in the same space-time coordinates while being physically apart. It was like they were dancing to music only they could hear, moving in perfect synchronization across impossible distances. The door burst open as Dr. Kim Dae-sung rushed in, his lab coat fluttering behind him. His usually neat black hair was disheveled, and he clutched a stack of papers in his hands. The printer had been working overtime, spitting out page after page of test results. "Hye-yun," he called out, his voice echoing in the quiet lab. "The secondary readings, they match, every single one of them. We're seeing instant state transfer across all test points. The particles aren't just linked. They're—" He paused, trying to find the right words. "They're the same particle." Hye-yun finished his thought, occupying 2 spaces at once, with no travel time between them. She stood up from her desk, walking over to the oscillation chamber. Her hand touched its cool surface, feeling the slight vibration of the machinery inside. Their team had started this project hoping to improve quantum computing. Instead, they had stumbled upon something far more significant. The implications were enormous. If particles could exist in 2 places at once with no travel time, then perhaps larger objects could too. Over the next days, their small team barely left the laboratory. They ordered food delivery, set up cots in the break room, and worked around the clock. Hye-yun and Dae-sung led the charge, breaking down the data into understandable chunks, creating new theories, and designing test after test. Young researchers from other departments started dropping by, drawn by the buzz of excitement that filled the quantum physics wing. Soon, their small team grew as volunteers offered to help with calculations and run simulations. 2 weeks into their discovery, Hye-yun stood before a whiteboard covered in equations. She drew a final line, connecting 2 separate theories, and stepped back. The math was beautiful in its simplicity. They had found a way to fold space itself, creating a bridge between 2 points that required no physical travel. "We need to build a prototype," Dae-sung said, looking at the equations. "Something bigger than the particle chamber. If we can scale this up, we could revolutionize transportation." Hye-yun finished. "No more rockets, no more fuel-hungry engines. Just a simple step from one point to another." She picked up a marker and wrote 3 words at the top of the whiteboard. "The blink drive." News of their discovery spread through the scientific community like wildfire. Most dismissed it as impossible. After all, Einstein's theories clearly stated that nothing could travel faster than light. But Hye-yun and her team weren't trying to break the light speed barrier. They had found a way around it. The equations were solid. The math checked out. And most importantly, they had proof. Their quantum oscillation chamber continued to produce consistent results, showing that particles could indeed exist in 2 places at once, with no travel time between points. As the weeks passed, their prototype designs grew more detailed. They weren't just building a larger version of their quantum chamber, they were creating something entirely new. The blink drive would use quantum entanglement on a massive scale, creating a field that could encompass an entire vehicle and its contents. Hye-yun often worked late into the night, fine-tuning calculations and running simulations. She knew they were on the verge of something that would change humanity forever. The ability to step between points in space without crossing the distance between them would open up the solar system, and perhaps even the stars themselves, to human exploration. One night, as she was preparing to leave the lab, she found Dae-sung still working at his desk. He looked up as she approached, his eyes bright with excitement despite the late hour. "I think we've done it, Hae-yun," he said, showing her his latest calculations. "The field equations are stable. We can start building the first full-scale prototype as soon as we get funding." Hae-yun smiled, looking at the complex mathematics that would soon transform into humanity's greatest technological achievement. The blink drive was no longer just a theory. It was about to become reality. The morning sun painted Seoul's skyline in shades of gold as Lee Jin-ho stood at his office window. 50 stories up, the city spread out before him like a living circuit board, pulsing with energy and purpose. He turned as his assistant announced the arrival of Dr. Park, Hae-yun, and Dr. Kim Dae-sung. The two scientists entered his minimalist office, carrying their presentation materials. Jin-ho had read about their work, following their progress from afar. As the founder of Quantum Dynamics Corporation, he had built his fortune on understanding which technologies would shape the future. This meeting could be his most important decision yet. "Please, sit," he gestured to the sleek chairs before his desk. The scientists settled in, and Hae-yun began spreading out their blueprints across his pristine glass desktop. The designs were elegant in their complexity, a perfect blend of theoretical physics and practical engineering. The blink drive operates by creating a quantum field large enough to encompass physical objects, Hae-yun explained, pointing to various sections of the blueprint. "We've already proven the concept works at the particle level." Jin-ho studied the designs carefully. His background in quantum physics helped him grasp the underlying principles, but what these scientists propose went far beyond current understanding. "Conventional physics says this is impossible," he said, tracing a finger along one of the technical drawings. Dae-sung leaned forward. "Yes, but conventional physics once said heavier than air flight was impossible too. We have the data to prove our theories." Jin-ho smiled, reaching for his tablet. With a few quick movements, he pulled up a funding agreement. "How soon can you build a working prototype?" Hae-yun and Dae-sung exchanged glances. "With proper funding and resources, 3 months," Hae-yun answered. "We've already designed most of the components." Jin-ho signed the agreement, committing 50 billion won to the project. "You'll have everything you need. I'm putting my reputation and resources behind this because I believe you found something revolutionary." The next few months transformed an abandoned warehouse outside Daejeon into a state-of-the-art research facility. Teams of engineers and technicians worked around the clock, building the components for the first blink drive prototype. The main testing chamber took shape, a reinforced room with enough power capacity to light up a small city. Hae-yun spent countless hours fine-tuning the quantum field generators, while Dae-sung focused on the control systems. Their team grew to include specialists from various fields, each contributing their expertise to the project. Security around the facility increased as word of their work spread. Korean military officials began making regular visits, watching their progress with keen interest. The potential military applications of instant transportation technology were obvious to everyone involved. On the day of their first full-scale test, the warehouse hummed with energy. They had chosen a simple ceramic cup as their test object, something small and sturdy enough to survive if anything went wrong. The cup sat on a pedestal at one end of the testing chamber, while monitoring equipment surrounded it. "Power levels stable," Dae-sung announced from the control room. "Quantum field forming normally." The air around the cup began to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot pavement. Hae-yun watched the readings carefully. Field strength at 15%, 30%, 50%. The air around the cup grew increasingly distorted. 75%. Field stability holding. The military observers leaned forward, their eyes fixed on the cup. Jin-ho stood silent in the back of the control room, his hands clasped behind his back. "Field strength at maximum," He-Yun said. "Initiating transport sequence in 3, 2, 1. For a brief moment, the cup seemed to exist in two places at once, both on its original pedestal and on the receiving platform across the room. Then, with no flash or sound, it simply disappeared from its starting point, leaving only the cup at the destination. The room erupted in cheers. He-Yun rushed to examine the transported cup, checking it for any changes or damage. It was perfectly intact, down to the small manufacturing mark on its bottom. The first successful teleportation of a solid object, Jin-Ho said, his voice carrying over the celebration. "You've just changed everything." The military officials huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. Everyone in the room understood that they had just witnessed a moment that would be written about in history books. That evening, as the team celebrated their success, He-Yun found a quiet moment to stand in the testing chamber. She picked up the cup, such a simple object that had just made such an incredible journey. They had taken the first step toward a new age of human transportation, proving that the impossible was possible after all. The real work was just beginning. They would need to scale up the technology, test it with larger objects, ensure it was safe for living things. But they had crossed the first and hardest threshold. The blink drive was no longer just a theory. It was real. Captain Song Mei checked her uniform one last time in the reflective surface of a nearby console. The bridge of the KQS Pioneer hummed with activity as her crew made final preparations for their historic first jump. The vessel represented humanity's boldest step into space travel, the first ship equipped with the revolutionary blink drive. The Pioneer itself was relatively small, designed for this initial test flight to Mars. Its sleek white hull housed the most advanced technology Earth had ever produced, centered around the massive blink drive core that took up nearly a third of the ship's volume. "All systems check complete, Captain," her first officer, Lieutenant Park Yoon-gai, reported from his station. "Drive core is operating within expected parameters." Mei nodded, settling into her command chair. The view screen showed Earth below them, a beautiful blue marble against the darkness of space. They had already moved beyond low Earth orbit using conventional engines. Now came the moment of truth. "Engineering. Status report." She called over the ship's communication system. "Drive is ready, Captain." Dr. Park Hae-Yun's voice came through clearly. The scientist had insisted on being present for this first jump, working alongside the ship's engineers to monitor the blink drive's performance. Mei took a deep breath. "All hands, prepare for quantum jump. Destination: Mars orbital insertion point." Her fingers tightened slightly on her armrests. "Engage blink drive in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The stars on the view screen seemed to stretch for a brief moment. There was no sensation of movement, just a slight tingling as the quantum field enveloped the ship. Then, in an instant, everything changed. Instead of the red planet they expected to see, they found themselves facing an enormous vessel. It dwarfed the Pioneer, its metallic surface catching the distant sunlight in ways that made it seem to shimmer. The design was like nothing any human had ever seen. Smooth curves and geometric patterns that spoke of technology far beyond Earth's current capabilities. "Report," Mei called out, her training kicking in despite her shock. "Unknown vessel, Captain," Lieutenant Park responded, his fingers flying over his console. "Size estimate puts it at roughly 2 kilometers in length. No match to any known design. We're not at Mars, Captain. According to stellar positioning, we're somewhere in the Kuiper Belt." Before Mei could respond, a soft chime sounded from the communication station. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's in perfect Korean." "Put it through," Mei ordered, standing from her chair. A voice filled the bridge, speaking with an oddly musical accent. "Vessel Pioneer, this is Ambassador Telleran of the Galactic Concordat. We must admit to some surprise at your arrival. We had not expected humanity to achieve quantum displacement technology for at least another century. Mei exchanged glances with her crew before responding. This is Captain Song Mei of the KQS Pioneer. We were attempting a jump to Mars. Our presence here was not intended. Yes, we observed your jump signature, the ambassador replied. Your method of quantum travel is quite unique. Would you be willing to accept a delegation aboard your vessel? We have much to discuss. Dr. He-yun's voice came through on a private channel. Captain, the drive is stable. Whatever happened, it wasn't a malfunction. We somehow exceeded our intended range by a factor of at least 50. Mei straightened her uniform again. Ambassador, we would be honored to receive your delegation. Please understand this is humanity's first contact with an alien civilization. We may need some guidance and proper protocols. Of course, Captain. And may I say, you're handling this situation with remarkable composure. We will transmit docking procedures shortly. The next hour was a blur of activity as the crew prepared for their unexpected guests. The alien shuttle that approached was as elegant as their mothership, moving with impossible grace through space. When the airlock cycled open, Mei found herself face to face with beings that looked surprisingly similar to humans, though their skin had a slight bluish tint and their eyes were larger than normal. Ambassador Telleran stood slightly taller than the others, wearing robes that seemed to shift colors as they moved. Captain Song, the ambassador bowed slightly. Your achievement is remarkable. The Concordat has been observing Earth for some time, but we did not detect your quantum technology development. Your approach to space-time manipulation is unique. Dr. He-yun stepped forward. Our blink drive operates on principles of quantum folding rather than traditional space-time tunneling. We discovered it almost by accident. The ambassador's eyes widened slightly. Quantum folding. But the energy requirements would be. They paused, looking at the humans with new respect. Perhaps we have much to learn from each other. As Mei led the delegation to the ship's conference room, she couldn't help but smile. Their mission to Mars had turned into humanity's first contact with an advanced alien civilization. Somehow, it seemed fitting that the blink drive had brought them to this moment, proving that humanity's greatest achievements often came when they dared to challenge the impossible. The KAIST laboratory buzzed with an unusual energy as Earth and alien scientists worked side by side. Dr. Park He-yun watched as Choi Hyunwoo, her youngest team member, prepared the demonstration unit. The Concordat scientists, with their tall frames and subtle blue skin tones, gathered around the quantum oscillation chamber with obvious interest. The laboratory had changed significantly since their first breakthrough. New equipment lined the walls, some of it provided by the Concordat, to help them better understand the differences between their technologies. Holographic displays showed complex equations floating in the air, a mix of human and alien mathematical notation. What we discovered, He-yun began, pointing to the oscillation chamber, was that space itself can be folded rather than tunneled through. She activated the chamber, and a small light began to pulse at its center. Watch the energy readings carefully. The Concordat's lead scientist, Telleran, studied the display with intense focus. Their large eyes widened as the numbers appeared. This can't be correct. The energy input is barely a quarter of what our systems require. Hyunwoo stepped forward, his excitement visible despite his professional demeanor. That's because we're not fighting against space-time, he explained, pulling up a simulation on the main display. Instead of forcing matter through a tunnel in space, we're bringing 2 points together temporarily. The simulation showed 2 dots on opposite sides of the screen. As the blink drive activated, the space between them simply folded, allowing them to touch for a fraction of a second before separating again. The process looked deceptively simple, but the quantum stability. Another Concordat scientist began, their musical accent making the Korean words sound like poetry. How do you maintain field coherence during the fold? He-yun smiled, remembering their early struggles with this exact problem. She walked to a smaller testing chamber and placed a simple metal cube inside. "It's easier to show you. Hyunwoo, would you do the honors?" The young scientist activated the chamber. The cube seemed to blur for a moment, then disappeared, reappearing instantly in a receiver unit across the room. The energy meter barely registered the transfer. "We discovered that quantum particles naturally want to exist in multiple states," Hyun explained. "Rather than forcing them into new positions, we simply allow them to express their natural tendencies on a larger scale. The field coherence maintains itself because we're working with the quantum nature of space rather than against it." The Concordat scientists huddled together, discussing rapidly in their native language. Their expressions showed a mixture of disbelief and excitement. Earth's primitive approach to quantum physics had produced something they had never considered possible. Hyun led them to another station, where the mathematics behind the blink drive were displayed in full detail. "The equations may look complex, but the underlying principle is quite simple. Space wants to fold. We just had to find the right way to ask it." One of the alien scientists traced a finger along a particularly elegant equation. "This is beautiful," they said softly. "We've spent centuries trying to force our way through space-time, and you simply asked it to move aside." Hyunwoo brought up comparative energy readings between the Concordat's quantum tunneling drive and the blink drive. The difference was stark. The human design operated at a fraction of the power requirement, while achieving the same results. "The real breakthrough came when we stopped thinking about transportation as movement through space," Hyun continued. "We realized that distance is more flexible than we thought. The universe already knows how to do this. We see it in quantum entanglement. We just had to scale it up." The demonstration continued for hours as the two groups of scientists shared their knowledge. The Concordat team began to understand why their own quantum drive technology had hit efficiency limits they could never overcome. They had been approaching the problem from a fundamentally different direction. As the day drew to a close, Telleran approached Hyun privately. "Your species continues to surprise us," they said. "We thought we were coming to teach you about quantum physics. Instead, you have taught us to question our most basic assumptions about how the universe works." Hyun looked around the laboratory, at humans and aliens working together, sharing ideas and building something new. "Maybe that's the real breakthrough," she replied. "Not the technology itself, but the reminder that there's always another way to look at a problem." The implications were clear. Humanity's primitive approach to physics had produced something revolutionary precisely because they hadn't been constrained by centuries of established theory. They had looked at the quantum world with fresh eyes and seen possibilities that others had missed. As night fell over Daejeon, the laboratory remained active. The blink drive had done more than revolutionize space travel. It had opened a door to a new era of scientific cooperation between species, and this was just the beginning. The first warning came at midnight. Security Officer Kang Minji was reviewing camera feeds when red lights began flashing across her monitors. The peaceful night at the research facility erupted into chaos as alarm sirens pierced the air. "Multiple breaches detected in sectors 3 and 4, her assistant called out. "Unknown vessels appearing at facility perimeter. They're using some kind of stealth technology." Minji's fingers flew across her console, bringing up defensive systems. The facility's shields hummed to life, but she could already see the attackers had positioned themselves carefully. 3 sleek ships hovered above the complex, their dark hulls absorbing light rather than reflecting it. "Alert Dr. Park and Dr. Kim," she ordered. "Get all research staff to secure locations. Activate Protection Protocol 7. She grabbed her tactical pad and ran toward the central security hub, her mind already racing through defensive scenarios. The first explosion rocked the building as she reached the hub. Through the reinforced windows, she could see figures in dark armor rappelling from the ships. Their movements were too precise, too coordinated. This was no random attack. "Officer Kang," a voice crackled through the facility's communication system. "This is Captain Riza of the Mercantile League. We have no wish to harm your people. Give us the blink drive specifications, and we will leave peacefully. Minji's hand tightened on her tactical pad. The Mercantile League, a group of technology pirates who sold advanced systems to the highest bidder. They had been causing trouble across Earth's solar system since first contact with the Concordat. Dr. Park Hae-yun's voice came through on a secure channel. Minji, we've secured the main laboratory, but they're trying to hack our data systems. Understood. Minji pulled up the facility's layout on her pad. The attackers were moving in a standard assault pattern, but they didn't know about the facility's secret weapon, a prototype defense system based on the blink drive itself. Dr. Park, can you activate the quantum field generators? Minji asked, watching as the attackers advanced through the outer corridors. Yes, but they're not designed as weapons, Hae-yun replied. We've only tested them for transportation. We don't need weapons, Minji said, a plan forming in her mind. We just need to confuse their targeting systems. Can you create multiple small fields around the facility? She could almost hear Hae-yun smile through the communication system. Quantum displacement fields coming online now. The effect was immediate. The attacking forces suddenly found themselves unable to trust their sensors. The quantum fields made it impossible to determine the exact location of anything within the facility. Their precise movements became hesitant, uncertain. What's happening? One of the attackers could be heard shouting through an open channel. My targeting system shows 3 identical signatures for every target. Minji allowed herself a small smile as she coordinated with the facility's security teams. The quantum fields weren't just creating confusion. They were actively folding space in small, controlled ways. The attackers would aim at one location only to find their target had instantly shifted position. Captain Riza, she broadcast on an open channel. You came to steal our technology. Now you're seeing just a fraction of what it can do. I suggest you reconsider your position. Another explosion rocked the building, but this time it came from the attackers' own weapons. Their targeting systems, confused by the quantum fields, had directed fire at one of their own ships. This is impossible. Riza's voice had lost its confidence. No defense system can move that fast. We're not moving at all, Minji replied. We're simply adjusting how space works around us, something your sensors can't handle. The security teams moved in, using the confusion to their advantage. The attackers, unable to trust their advanced targeting systems, were forced to rely on basic visual contact. But in the maze of quantum fields, even that proved unreliable. Within 20 minutes, the attack had completely fallen apart. 2 of the League's ships retreated with significant damage, while the third was disabled by its own misfired weapons. The ground forces, disoriented and outmaneuvered, surrendered to facility security. As the quantum fields powered down, Minji met with Hae-yun in the control room. I never thought we'd use the blink drive technology like this, the scientist said, looking at the aftermath displayed on the monitors. Sometimes the best defense isn't about having better weapons, Minji replied. It's about understanding your technology better than your opponent does. They watched as Concordat security ships arrived to take the captured League members into custody. The attack had failed, but it had also revealed something important. The blink drive's potential went far beyond simple transportation. News of the failed attack spread quickly through the scientific community. The Mercantile League had come expecting to find valuable but conventional technology. Instead, they had discovered that humanity's quantum breakthrough was far more revolutionary than anyone had imagined. The Concordat's Grand Assembly Hall stretched upward in sweeping curves of crystal and light. Dr. Park Hae-yun stood at the speaker's platform beside Ambassador Yang Ji-won, looking out at the gathered representatives of over 200 alien civilizations. The massive chamber hummed with quiet conversations in dozens of languages. Light filtered through the crystalline ceiling, casting rainbow patterns across the assembled delegates. Species of all shapes and sizes filled the tiered seating, some floating in special environment pods, others requiring different atmospheric conditions in their sealed sections. Ji-won stepped forward, his diplomatic robes catching the light. Honored representatives of the Concordat, he began, his voice carried clearly through the universal translators. We stand before you not as supplicants, but as partners in progress. He-Yun activated the holographic display, showing the basic principles of the blink drive. The familiar equations floated in the air, drawing gasps from some of the scientific advisors present. For centuries, Jai-1 continued, the Concordat has approached quantum transportation through tunneling technology. It was the obvious path, the one that seemed most logical. But humanity, coming to this problem with fresh eyes, found a different way. The display shifted, showing a side-by-side comparison of Concordat quantum tunneling and the blink drive's space folding technique. The energy efficiency differences were stark. The blink drive proves that different approaches to the same problem can yield superior results, Jai-1 said. But more importantly, it proves that no single civilization has all the answers. We propose a new kind of exchange, not just of technology, but of perspectives. He-Yun stepped forward. When we first achieved quantum transportation, we did so without centuries of established theory guiding our way. What some might see as a disadvantage became our greatest strength. We looked at the quantum realm with new eyes and saw possibilities others had overlooked. The assembly hall grew quiet as she spoke. Even the most skeptical delegates seemed interested in her words. But this is not about human superiority, she continued. It's about the power of combining different viewpoints. Your civilizations have developed technologies we can barely comprehend. Imagine what we could achieve by working together, sharing not just our discoveries, but our different ways of thinking. The holographic display showed a new set of equations, a hybrid system combining Concordat stability control with human quantum folding principles. The result was something entirely new. An elder member of the Concordat Science Council stood. You propose to share this technology freely, after the recent attempt to steal it. Jai-1 nodded. The attack by the Mercantile League proved that trying to hoard technology only leads to conflict. We propose instead to make this knowledge available to all Concordat members under proper safety protocols. And in exchange, asked another delegate, their crystalline form shimmering with interest. In exchange, we ask for open access to Concordat scientific knowledge and the opportunity to work alongside your researchers, not as students, but as equals. Different perspectives working together toward common goals. The assembly erupted in discussion. Many delegates were already talking excitedly among themselves, while others looked concerned at such a dramatic break from tradition. He-Yun activated the final display, a simulation showing how combining human and Concordat technologies could revolutionize everything from space travel to energy production. We stand at a crossroads. Jai-1 addressed the assembly again. We can cling to old ways of thinking, or we can embrace the power of diversity, not just in species, but in thought itself. The vote that followed was closer than they had hoped, but the proposal passed. The agreement that would become known as the Technology Exchange Accord was signed that day, marking the beginning of a new era in galactic science. As they left the assembly hall, He-Yun looked at the stars visible through the crystal ceiling. Somewhere out there, research teams were already beginning to combine human intuition with alien knowledge in ways that would reshape their understanding of the universe. They're still unsure about us, Jai-1 said quietly as they walked. Some of them think we're too young, too unpredictable. He-Yun smiled. Maybe that's exactly what they need. A reminder that sometimes the best solutions come from unexpected places. The news of the Accord spread quickly through the galaxy. Humanity had done more than just develop a new technology. They had changed how the Concordat thought about scientific progress itself. The age of isolated research was ending. A new era of collaborative discovery was about to begin. Starlight streamed through the vast observation window of Research Station New Dawn, casting gentle shadows across Dr. Park, He-Yun's face, as she watched ships appear and vanish in the distance. Each vessel moved with perfect precision, their hybrid drives creating brief ripples in spacetime as they traveled. The research station hung in space near Alpha Centauri, humanity's first permanent presence in another star system. Its curved hull gleamed under the light of 3 suns, a testament to what could be achieved when human and alien technology worked in harmony. Heyun's reflection in the window had gained a few gray hairs over the past decade, each one earned through countless hours of research and innovation. The station's observation deck had become her favorite place to think, watching the constant dance of ships coming and going. A familiar figure appeared in the window's reflection. Dr. Kim Dae-sung walked up beside her, his steps still steady despite the years. "The new drive tests are complete," he said, his voice carrying the same excitement it had when they'd made their first breakthrough so many years ago. "And?" Heyun asked, though she could guess from his smile. "Better than we hoped. The space folding effect is stable at ranges we never thought possible. The Concordat scientists are still trying to understand how we managed it." She turned from the window, picking up her tablet from a nearby console. The screen displayed their latest project, a drive system that didn't just fold space between 2 points, but could actually manipulate the fabric of space-time itself. "Remember when they said it was impossible?" Dae-sung asked, looking out at the ships performing their quantum dance. "Now look at us, humans and aliens working together, pushing the boundaries of what's possible." A massive cargo vessel blinked into existence near the station, its hybrid drive combining Concordat stability systems with human quantum folding technology. The ship was carrying materials from Earth to one of the new colony worlds, a journey that once would have taken years now accomplished in moments. "We've come so far," Heyun said, bringing up more details of their new project on the tablet. "But there's still so much to discover. This new drive system, it's just the beginning." The tablet showed simulations of their latest breakthrough, a way to create stable space-time bubbles that could be used for everything from terraforming to protecting ships from extreme conditions. The mathematics behind it combined human intuition with alien precision in ways that would have seemed impossible just a decade ago. Young researchers moved through the observation deck, some human, others alien, all working together on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. Heyun watched them with pride, remembering her own early days in that small laboratory at KIST. "The new generation doesn't see any difference between human and alien technology anymore," Dae-sung noted. "To them, it's all just science, all just tools to understand the universe better." A group of Concordat scientists floated past in their environment suits, discussing equations with human colleagues. The universal translators had become so advanced that the different languages blended seamlessly together, ideas flowing freely across species barriers. "That's the real breakthrough," Heyun said, making a final adjustment to the calculations on her tablet. "Not the technology itself, but the way we've learned to see things differently. Every problem has multiple solutions if you're willing to look for them." Through the window, stars stretched out to infinity, each one now within humanity's reach. The universe had opened up in ways their ancestors could only dream about, not through conquest or competition, but through cooperation and innovation. The tablet chimed, indicating that the new drive simulations were complete. The results were even better than expected. They were on the verge of another breakthrough, another step into the unknown. "They're ready for us in the main laboratory," Heyun said, stepping back from the window. "The next phase of testing is about to begin." As they walked toward the laboratory, ships continued their quantum dance outside the station. Each one represented a dream made real, an impossible thing made possible through the combined efforts of multiple species working together. The stars beckoned, holding mysteries yet to be discovered. And humanity, having found its place among the galaxy's finest innovators, was ready to answer that call, not alone, but as part of something greater than themselves. The universe, they had learned, had room for many kinds of thinking, many approaches to truth, and in that diversity lay the key to unlocking its deepest secrets.